Cheers and warm welcome from our showroom here in Emmerich, live today for our pop-up session. And as you can obviously see, today the topic is not necessarily coffee. So we will speak about a lot of different products that we can also roast. But as you do know, I am the coffee person here at PROBAT. I love coffee roasting, I love talking about coffee. And as I cannot say that much to all the products that we see here, I have a guest today, and please kindly let me introduce to you our today's guest. Tobias, thank you for being here with me and sharing all that we want to know about the products that we just saw. And please let the audience know who you are, what you do, and why you are here today.
Very, very nice. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Tobias Lohmüller. I'm a process technologist at the end of the day. I'm roasting not only coffee. We have expertise in roasting cocoa, nuts, grains, malt roasting, maybe very interesting. You saw just the beer there. Whiskey you can color with this malt roasted. Mm-hmm. So there are many topics, not only flavor as well on color. And I'm happy to be here to talk and to explain a little bit what is very interesting, what is important, what we have to take care.
Yeah, just sharing with us that not only coffee roasting is possible, not necessarily on the machines like they're in the back of us, because usually they need a little bit of adjustment, right? So you should not use a drum for coffee roasting, for example, to roast malt.
Very interesting topic, yes, indeed. Also, the point is simply the classical coffee roaster is perforated at the end, and if the grains are too small, they can fall down to the burner. Of course, they are going to burn, fume is going to rise, and then, of course, flavor and safety is not really anymore taken care so much. So that's the reason why normally, if you have smaller grains or dusty grains, then you need to have a closed system behind. Mm-hmm. However, convective roasting, which you are using, of course, for coffee roasting, is very important, especially if we talk about color. Yeah. Why? Because we can transfer far more faster heat into the product than with conductive. Whereas when we talk about conductive roasting, there's a huge advantage, for example, to accentuate nut notes, for example. Okay. So, because I always say, we have this carbo notes, which is roasted notes. Yeah. You know, maybe in espresso, it's very strong. Yeah. This is a little bit product unspecific, whereas this more milder notes, when we talk about nut notes, is coming from the more conductive way. So the Maillard reaction, so the reducing sugar and the proteins are reacting more smoothly, and their flavor pops up like the special malt for the beer. You know,
yeah. So in terms, you kind of do what we do when we roast coffee, because also here we have the nut flavors, we have the more carbonic bitters flavors. The longer you roast, the darker you roast the coffee beans. And this kind of compares to whatever product we put into the drum then as well.
Yeah, you're far faster.
I'm sorry.
When you're talking about roasting, you're not talking about 160, 180 minute roast.
I know,
we are taking
temperatures are
far
quite
more
low.
time for some products, whereas the coffee is really nice to handle. It's very, let's say, robust, whereas we have to take care about exothermic reactions, so that maybe it's not starting to burn by itself. For example, when we talk about Guinness beer, very dark beer, which is then really an ABC value of 1,600, which is really dark, and they are starting almost to burn as a pyrolytic reaction, and you have to stop it before it's really getting the ash. The other thing, or if we talk about nuts, we have to take care that fat is not migrating into the outside. And I had once a fancy roast that was so stressful for the product, and you could see how the fat is leaking out. So it was a fat extraction out of roasting. At the end of the day, of course, you don't want this. You need to handle this. So that means you are too strong. You have to make it more gentle. Movement needs to be more gentle. Temperature needs to be.
Yeah, because some of the grains, they can break much easier than the coffee beans. So you have to slow down the drum, the rounds per minute that the drum turns. Yeah, and also, this is also why it's so important for us to know beforehand, will it be a roaster for coffee or will there be any other product inside? So sometimes what we experience quite often is that people want to know different product with one machine in some cases it's okay, but in others it's really not working out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the reason you should not always run only exclusively for a coffee roaster. You need to have process expertise. So that's good that we have them here, so that we can first do trials, that we can decide simply maybe the convective roaster alone, also a coffee roaster would be good enough. Maybe the burner needs to be down-regulated, but then it's a good solution. However, we have a G series. I just saw it in the startup. It was behind you. This is a wonderful machine. It combines both acids, the conductive and the convective roasting. So there you have simply the whole flexibility to do the left things or the right things. And we didn't talk about that for Maillard reaction water is required. And as well here, this has of course an impact in flavor.
Of course, and if you have a product that you need to roast where there's no humidity inside, you probably need to add it somehow, because in a coffee bean there is by nature already the water, so it behaves different in the roaster. And also of course here we can change the percentage of conductive and convection heat by just simply adjusting the drum speed, but then of course there's much more that we need to think of. And I even saw that the cooling tray looks different. When you have small grains, of course you need to make sure that they don't fall through the holes in the cooling tray. So just simple things that you need to keep in mind when you want to roast different products.
I was at smaller facilities, very funny. So now after the second roast, they had always to clean the cooler below the cooler, the ashtray. So it was really funny. So they had really a cleaning cycle included, because it was of course not designed for this kind of topic. So I mean, exactly this. We should normally always understand first what is the raw material doing and how it should go out. And based on that, we can define the right machine.
Yeah, perfect, perfect. And how it will look like when we roast different products, we will see now in a video that we have prepared for you. And have fun, enjoy, and here's the short video. So coffee roasting, this is what we know from our roasters, but of course the roasters can do much more. And we will show you today the purpose of the, what we call it, multi-roaster of PROBAT. And we're going to show you different products. And for this, we're going to invite my colleague Jörg, who will join us and help us roasting all those different products and give us an idea of how it's done.
Hi, Dani.
Hi, Jörg. Good to see you. And good to have you here with us, because you're the one knowing a little bit more than me, because for me it's coffee roasting, but you also know how to roast almonds, for example. And this is what we will be doing right now, as I heard, right?
Yes, for sure. I've prepared a batch for roasting with almonds. We have different products we can also roast. For maybe hazelnuts and so on. We can talk about that later. We have just roasted a batch of coffee, as you already explained. And now we can directly charge some almonds.
Okay, Jörg, I'm going to close the door, and we can see how nicely clean the cooling tray is. So perfect, everything of the coffee beans is out, and we can just go ahead and fill the almonds in the hopper, right?
Yes, it's still prepared, so we can charge it in the hopper.
So this is what the almonds look like when they're fresh. Can I let them in?
You can drop them in, and I will start
at any time, or do you want me to wait?
Feel free, start.
Feel free. Okay, then let's go. So Jörg, and now the process is just running for approximately 16 to 20 minutes. We will find out, depending on the product, depending on how the energy is taken in by the almonds. And you know the color, what they need to look like, right?
Yeah, and the taste, you have to taste not only with your nose and your eyes, you also can do it with your mouth. The quarter of the batch is done. For sure, you can try to take a sample and have a look on it.
I don't smell enough, so
unfortunately, but later you will.
Let's check the color one more time. I'm very
because
curious.
It's a half time.
Half time. Oh yeah, but now they changed. It's
Yeah,
not
that's
that
so
yellowish,
after the
now it's
half-
already brownish. And it smells. Okay, Jörg, we took out some samples and here we can already see the skin.
sure.
It cracks
The
open a little
surface,
bit, but of course now they're still very hot.
I can imagine the chafe, the surface from the almonds is a bit different than the inner part.
Yeah.
So there is a different reaction depending on the extension of the temperature and so on.
Can I already eat it?
Yes, for sure. You can try. It's hot.
Oh, yeah. It's really
Softy a bit.
soft and chewy.
Yeah, that's the reason why we took it out, to check if it is the cooling time has an effect on the
Flavor and crunchiness.
crunchiness. Yeah.
Would this be short before taking them
Oh,
out?
I think so, because also we are with 19 minutes.
Yeah,
You can see some of them are real dark and it's hot.
yeah. This is why I'm not going to taste them right now. I leave this to you.
The taste is good.
Okay. So shall we start cooling and the steering?
Give
Or
me
just give it a little
me a
bit
minute.
more?
I would say let's drop them out.
Okay. For me, it's still always great to look inside the cooling tray and no coffee beans, but almonds are inside. Smells warm, almondy-ish, but I could not really say it's that typical almond smell that you get. And actually, it smells a little bit like almond cookies. So now we are done with our almonds. Can I taste?
Yes, for sure. Feel free. Should be cold and
Very nice. And let's see, what they look like before and what they look like now. So this is
the
what
beginning.
they were in green
Yeah.
when they were going in. This is the steps in between, and this is what they look at the end.
So, my opinion, we can drop in.
Yeah?
You can start, and I will start and take care about that all of them are in.
Okay. So
but-
you're gonna go upstairs to let her.
Yeah. Here we go.
Okay, let's go.
We can reduce the speed of the drum.
Yeah. So for this, it definitely makes sense to have the frequency converter for the
Yeah,
drum.
yeah.
If you want to roast
You
different
see, there's
products.
there's another weight, but the weight is all it's just 17 kg. That's not the problem.
So now we see the peanuts are inside the drum. The roasting will take approximately up to 20 minutes. We will see. And we're going to use the same recipe as for the almonds. And as the process is running now, we just let it go until we are done. Jörg, we are ready, right?
Yeah, please.
Okay, then we get them out. So this is now the roasted peanuts. I can only see that they change a little bit on the outside color, but of course the most important happened inside, right?
Yeah, there's also changing in the color inside.
Yeah.
And you have seen that or tasted it.
Well, it tastes like, real peanuts now. So thank
the
you very
plan.
much, Jörg, for introducing the different products that are also possible to be roasted on a PROBAT roaster. And we have been roasting the almonds, the peanuts, and this is of course only 2 different products that we are possible to roast on the PROBAT roaster. There is much more, but sometimes you have to make adjustments for the roaster, sometimes you don't. So whatever you need to know, need to ask, let us know, and we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So now you get an impression of what it looks like when we roast different products on our roaster. We only had 2, we had almonds and we had peanuts. And of course, whenever you have questions to what you saw, to what you see on the table, or to things that we say, just go ahead, Write your questions in the chat. We will be happy to answer them. But now we're going to concentrate on the things that we have here. So this is what we roasted in the video. I know. So almonds. And I have to admit, I've never had almonds this yummy without any sugar, without any salt. So I'm super happy with the result of the almonds. And then we did the peanuts, but there's already one big thing. I see this is the peanuts that we roasted. This is the peanuts how we eat them. Why do we have to roast them like this and not like that?
Also, coming first maybe to the almonds, I'm happy that it was tasty.
Yeah.
I think for the almonds industry it's very important that you have normally a pasteurization step required in the beginning so that you are safe, debacterized, so that we are sure that we don't have salmonella. And you would need to have a log 4 kill, for example, in America. That's the reason why you have to roast them quite high in temperature, or you have a separate distinct pasteurization device with steam, for example, in front. Same thing happens when you talk about the peanuts. The peanuts, of course, when they are in the husk, they are sterile. They are sterile because normally, if they are not broken, there is no contamination inside, so you are totally safe. If you are having, let's say, them already open, then you have, of course, to take care that you have a very dark peanut roast because they can contain, of course, some traces of salmonella again, and you need to remove them. So that's the reason why
by the temperature.
Exactly. You cannot do this on a low temperature. That's the reason why they are always dark. If you do this like that, you can do mild roasting. What you can see mainly with salted, they are not so heavily roasted. But you can do this, of course, more gentle because they are safe.
Yeah. And what I saw when we roasted them, they don't extend in volume. So they stay like they go in, they go out. That's
absolutely,
for me, the big difference when comparing it to coffee.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I mean, it's a really 30-40% volume increase. So we can really fill the drum to a certain extent, and it's not going to change when you are done with your roasting. The only thing you see as a change is, of course, that the color is changing. It's mainly correlating as well with moisture content. And the second thing is it smells, of course, far better.
Yes,
certainly. Again, when we do peanut paste, then we don't want to have the skin. So we don't do only roasting. We as well make a separation from the tester, also from the skin from those. We have the brown ones or the red ones. So this is as well not only roasting, as well a separation. The same thing for the separation we do for the beer industry at the end of the day. So we lose yield not only because we dry, we lose yield as well because we do a separation.
Yeah, and then of course the mass becomes less and less.
Exactly. So you are losing roughly said 20% of the volume at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Very interesting when we keep to the mold. There are two kind of different situation in the mold in the beer industry. One time you talk about flavor.
Yeah.
Then we need to have a longer stewing effect, it's called. So we want to have a caramelization reaction so that you drink more sweet beer. This is more the craft beers, of course. And when we go to the very dark beers, here on the left side we see one, then of course we talk about a very high EBC value, and that means here we can be very fast in temperature increase, but we are always on the limit that we start to burn. So it's for the operators very interesting, so they have to take very much care that and it's, let's say, 160 minutes, so it's not a quick roast.
This is really long.
Coming to cocoa beans, maybe here looking.
Yes, please.
This is one of my favorite. Cocoa beans is, of course, very dependent on the genotype. So we have different kind of flavors. You have this as well. In cocoa, we claim we have more or less 5 genotypes. So a little bit more than what coffee is.
Could be also fruity.
Can be fruity, can be for genotype is more the flowery notes, the interesting thing, like a rose. So it's really this you can accentuate during roasting, whereas when you talk about fruitiness, it's coming from the fermentation. Cocoa beans are gefetted, fermented, and those esters, which is the fruity notes, are penetrating those beans, and so it stays inside. Or you are very harsh and you blow it away, and then you have again your classical cocoa flavor popping up.
Okay. And does that come with a different time and different color as in coffee, or is there different things that also have an impact on how the flavor is produced?
Also in the cocoa industry, it's really the genotype and the fermentation index. And funnily, we talk about fermentation. Fermentation is like a beer industry, so but they are doing this on a heap, on the floor. It's 100, 200 kg putting inside, and every 2 days they mix this, that the air goes in, and the other one, what is inside out, which has no air, is going to be aerated. And this has a strong impact, of course, on the flavor development, like in the yogurt industry, the same, as well as fermentation.
Yeah.
And there are genotypes, they have only 2-day fermentation, and there are genotypes, they have 6-day fermentation. Of course, they are tasting different at the end of the day. And the roasting makes only the accentuation, also makes it acceleration on cocoa notes. So when we talk about classical cocoa, it's a 6-day fermented, very strong cocoa, and very clean. No fruity, no flowery, very robust. No?
Okay, yeah, cool. And then we come to a product which I so far have not been in touch with, bagel nuts.
Yeah, funny, because we have, of course, a test pilot scale, and we were asked if we can do this. And yes, we can. Never done before, so the same thing as with the last session.
Yeah,
so
that looks super interesting as well.
Yeah, exactly. So we get sometimes requests if this is possible or not, and they have clear roasting targets, and we don't know. We have to do the assays because we need to be sure that our roaster is performing and that we can guarantee, of course, the required values they are expecting. More common is, of course, the hazelnuts, either as a paste or as something to grain in between. There are some specialties where they want to keep the skin outside, and of course the roasting needs to be a little bit different because we don't want to...
More gentle so that we don't break it?
Absolutely, that you don't eat the skin, and but the most people wants to have it more clean. Why? Because if you the tester is very bitter. Don't know what is the English word.
Bitter.
It's bitter.
Bitter is bitter.
Bitter is bitter. So that means super simple. So that means here we have here, of course, always as well different target.
Okay.
And at last and not least, now we come back from cocoa and coffee, is the chicory. The chicory roasting is a very interesting roast as well, very difficult to roast. Here, for example, you have to coat the drum with fat before you roast.
Because there's no fat inside, so that you kind of add fat to the product?
Not the root cause is to less fat migration, maybe in the outside, in order to have avoiding the agglomeration on the drum. So if you don't add, you spray really inside this drum, fat 1.5%, something like that, so that everything is very like the pan, everything is covered.
Otherwise it will stick and all the dust will just...
and then you can start to roast, and it's getting very high in temperature. So Muckefuck, you might know.
Of course.
So as well as a very interesting, it's one of the things you can do as well. And when we talk about grain roasting or chicory, then we talk not about small size roaster like that. We talk about roasters with 3.5 tons, 5 tons, so per batch. So
and what would be the roasting time on the chicory?
It's roughly said, would say 160, 170 minutes.
Also super long
compared to coffee. Above 200 degrees.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why it takes some time.
Yeah.
Maybe coming to the grain, also to the malt industry again, sometimes you add even malt with 40% of water content. So it's really wet. So it's just
so it's super heavy in the beginning also.
Absolutely, and it's just germinating. Also they get the little trees, also the little leaves coming out, and then they put it inside, and this has an impact on flavor.
Yeah.
You might know we have a dopamine receptor as well in the brain, and this is linked to that. You have as well GABA developed, which is then making you happy. Maybe that's the reason why we like beer so much.
Yeah. Now I know.
And again, here you have this 40% of water. So of course you're not roasting, only you have to dry this 40% first before you get the flavor development. But it's really interesting. As I said, there are so different characteristics and as well attitudes from the product.
Yeah, and it comes out in so many different end products. I mean, especially the chicory, it's good for people who are looking for alternatives when it comes to coffee. Of course, it's not, you don't get the coffee flavor. The coffee flavor is so distinguished that there is nothing kind of replacing it.
But the color.
But the color matches, and of course you have something which is local, which misses all the transport ways and all the time that we need. So it's right here, and it would be an alternative. But just looking at the different products and hearing how different they have to be treated, so there's much more to our machines than just coffee roasting.
Absolutely.
Which just is not in a negative way.
And it's not only heat transfer, it's knowing when, it's knowing how, it's understanding as well what is a Maillard reaction. So we are not allowed to dry too fast. If we do this, we are missing the opportunity to make a different kind of flavor. So at the end of the day, you are selling a flavor or color, and that means as bigger your window is, as better it is, as more differentiation you can do. And I mean, that's the reason why, as you have said beforehand, some people are adding water in the very beginning, that the water activity is rising. Why? Because normally Maillard reaction is taking place in this product, not in the coffee, with 80 degrees Celsius. I know when we look on the literature on coffee, then we talk about 150 degrees and so on.
Different temperatures.
Yeah, but Maillard reaction is a chemical reaction, certainly. And by the way, it happens even with 37 degrees, because the gray star is a Maillard reaction. So it takes only it's very long until the gray star is popping. Again, temperature is, of course, speeding up this whole situation. So, but you need to understand Maillard reaction, coming back to the point, and there you need water, you need reducing sugar, you need the proteins. And I think the most complicated roast is still the cocoa industry. Why? They have to be fermented, and the fermentation have, of course, a significant impact on the precursors. When you talk about coffee, it's as well fermented, but not the inside so much. So whereas in our case, you can have a lot of proteins. When you have a lot of proteins, you can do a lot of Maillard reaction. If you have a little fermentation, no proteins, you can roast as good you are. It's not possible to get a really good cocoa flavor.
You don't have that window where you can play with the aroma.
Exactly, and if there is nothing in, you will get out a lot. So it's sometimes funny. I even saw people adding in the roast, reducing sugar, which is a little bit messy, to be honest, but it's of course possible. They rehydrate the product with reducing sugar, and then of course they can accentuate again this Maillard reaction. So, but you need to know what is the limit.
A lot of insight. Oh,
yeah, it's really funny. I mean, you can talk years about.
I know. I get that. We don't have years. We only have a couple of minutes, and I'm just checking if there's any questions by now that have been coming in. So far, I don't see any. So you explained very well. There's no more questions. We're just going to give it a few more moments, and I mean, for me, it's like. The 3 bottles here, this is super interesting. I mean, I do know that our machines are needed to give it the color, to give it the flavor, but then in most cases when we talk roasting, for me, it's always coffee first, but then seeing that there's so many different possibilities for so many different products, it's super amazing to see what there is and what we can do with our roasters and the machines.
You know, the funny part is we have in Scotland as well a facility, and whiskey is using the grains for coloring the whiskey to the brown color.
So it's just for the color, so it's...
Absolutely. So we do this as well. This grain roasting is it's a very... And since Scotland is quite famous, let's say, for whiskey, we are missing this whiskey pot.
Yeah, we didn't want to overdo it, you know. 3 bottles of beer in the afternoon, that's already fine enough.
So that's a promise.
Marco has a question. He's asking, how long is cocoa roasted on average?
Also, you can do this in 30 minutes. It's for me too short, certainly. So I would say when you do nib roasting, we talk about 45 to 60 minutes. If you do bean roasting, we talk about 35 minutes. So when you're on small scale, normally people are using bean roasting. Here you go as well in higher temperature. We are not talking about 120 degrees. We go to 130 degrees, and you are roughly set 40 minutes. When you talk about nib roasting, I'm not sure what kind of technology you are looking for. Then, of course, you go maybe to 60 minutes, and then you can add as well water. It's not possible with the beans. Why? Because the beans are going to rehydrate the water on the skin, and there you don't want to have the reaction.
But nib roasting also has the point that you have much more fat than inside the system. Is that correct? Because
if you do something wrong, yes. But the point is simply when you talk cocoa bean roasting, you can roast and then deshell. So it's the tester, same thing what we had with almonds, that you have tester on it. So or you can deshell them from the very beginning. and then you roast. And this has some certain advantages. You can accentuate even stronger the cocoa notes. Why? Because you can add some water. If you do this on a cocoa bean, it might come up to off flavors because you migrate through the shell, and there are maybe some off flavors you don't want to. And the second thing is, of course, we talk sometimes about Dutching. So that means we want to have different color in cocoa powder. And then, of course, you need to do mid-nip roasting because there we treat really heavily with water.
Okay.
And,
cool. So, Marco, I hope the question is answered. You see there's a lot of knowledge that we have here with Tobias on our side. And, of course, whenever there's more that you want to know, please step forward, come to us, give us the questions, and in this case, Tobias will be more than happy to answer them because
certainly
I can't. But I think that was super interesting to just have a look inside and see what's possible. And I know you could tell much more, but I don't want to give too much information right now because you know, we need to keep some for later.
Okay, as you say so. I say thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, you're so welcome. And just checking one more time if there is more that came in. No more questions. So from my side, I say also thank you so much for coming here, for explaining to us all the different types of products. If there's anything that you want us to roast and to try out, also possible. We just heard that. And with this, we wish you a great afternoon, and we just turn around, okay? So see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.